Hi, welcome back to the Joint Dynamics Intelligent Movement Series podcast. My name's Andrew Cox. I'm one of the owners and directors of a company here in Hong Kong called Joint Dynamics. And guess what? Today I'm sitting down with another owner, co-founder and director of a company called FINEPRINT. So today joining us on the podcast is Scott Callaghan. He's co-founder of FINEPRINT, a chain of cafes he started with his mate in 2016 and has grown to 10 locations around Hong Kong, from 4 staff to now 160. And we just were talking about that. That's a growth of about 3,900% if we quantified this growth of your staff only. Like that's phenomenal. Not only that. So Scotty was a competitive barista. So in 2006, he won the World Latte. He was the World Latte Art Champion. In 2010, he placed 3rd place, no less, in the World Barista Championship. He was the Australian Barista Champion 2007, 2010. He's also, in his spare time, an endurance athlete where he runs races of 70 or 160 kilometres just in his spare time. Like all entrepreneurs, we all have so much spare time. Welcome to the Joint Dynamics podcast, Scotty.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate. It's great to see you. Hey, I think a great place to start is, where did your love of coffee come from? Like, if I think about my childhood in Australia, you're from a country town as well. Where did you?
I grew up in a small town called Bomaderry, which is just outside a larger small town called Nara.
Okay. How many people live
very Australian sounding town, Nara. Even with my Australian accent. I think Nara has a population of 20,000 and Bomaderry probably has a population of 1,000 or so, I guess, maybe less, I'm not sure. Maybe a bit more, I'm not sure.
Okay, That's brilliant. So I grew up in a country town called Tamworth. A little bit bigger than Nara.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was thinking about, where would Scotty's love of coffee come from? And then I went, you know what, when I met my wife, her family is Italian. Her mum's from Sicily, her dad's from Sardinia.
Yes.
And they love coffee. My wife loves coffee. Sometimes I think there's this competition. The way she looks at coffee compared to the way she looks at me sometimes. I see the love that she has for coffee, and I hope that we have a similar relationship. And I went, is Scotty, are you from a Greek, Italian family? Where exactly did your love of coffee come from?
My family, my mum, my dad, their mum and dad, as Australian as you get. My mum's dad owned a dairy farm just outside of in a town called Canberra, just outside of Nara. So my family background is just very, very Australian. I think my love of coffee comes from my love of flavour. Ever since I can remember, I can remember when I was about 8 years old, when my mum was cooking in the kitchen. What was annoying, I would go in and I would ask her what she's doing, and I remember asking my mum at a very young age, can I cook? You know, and what's a cookbook I should. And I started just reading through cookbooks and saying, can I try cooking this? And when mum wasn't in the kitchen, she would say, yeah, go for it. And I would go up to her and I would say, oh, Mum, it says use 4 OZ of this. What does OZ mean? You know, and so Mum said it means 4 ounces, son. And here's the thing, how you measure it, and so on and so forth. So Mum taught me how to cook. And I used to get up every morning before the family woke up because we had porridge in the morning, and I enjoyed cooking the porridge for the family.
Nice.
And it was a fun for me. It was that was not a chore. I was excited about doing that. So for some reason, I've always loved flavor and cooking. And so I was working in a cafe many, many years later when I was 20-something years old. I forget how, about say 22. And I was working in the kitchen. And at that cafe, I was drawn to the coffee machine. I sort of was watching the barista and enjoyed sort of learning from the barista in that cafe. And then the coffee supplier of that particular cafe invited us to do a tour of the coffee roasting facility, and that was the beginning of my coffee journey, where I went to the coffee roasting facility and they showed me the big machine that roasts the coffee and the room full of all the raw green coffee beans. That was the first time I saw raw green coffee beans, and a laboratory where there's a guy in a white coat whose job is to taste coffee and assess it and evaluate it and all this. And then I saw that sort of draw me into the romance of coffee. And ever since then, I just began this, combined with that, and I'm a perfectionist by nature. And so I began this relentless pursuit of just wanting to understand the romance behind this sort of this coffee bean. What is it? Because back then in Australia, 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't as big as it is today, and it was a lot of sort of hidden romance behind it. And I was sort of driven to understand how it works, and that grew into a career.
Were you a coffee drinker at 20 before 2022 when you went into
Yes,
that?
I was young, sort of, from the age of about 16 through to 25, 30. I was a young sort of Sydneyite in the trendy suburbs. I love the trendy suburbs of Sydney, and I remember when I was 18 thinking that I was cool ordering a cafe latte.
The dude just popped the lid and got there. Oh, is that branded coffee?
But
My mum would have dreamt.
But I was posh. I was. Nah.
That's actually another interesting point. Maybe there's the cultural influences. What I made an assumption might have been your cultural background. Do you think Australians, like, we love coffee? Like, you go to Melbourne, it's nuts. I don't understand.
I don't understand it either. People ask me, why do Australians love coffee so much? And if you're Australian, you know what I'm talking about. Some people who are not Australian would know. A lot of people who are not Australian wouldn't know what I'm talking about. But Australians, just coffee in the last 20, 30, 40 years has just gone absolutely bananas. It's gone crazy. And why Australians love coffee. Like, I never would have, 20 years ago, I never would have predicted what's happened in the Australian coffee culture. It's like if you go to an Australian country town in the middle of New South Wales, so real outback Australia, there will be a good cafe with a good barista making good coffee, like better coffee than most cafes in the world. And you tell a lot of people that, they wouldn't believe you. It's a fascinating. Maybe it's our weather is just so beautiful, and the al fresco dining just lends itself to that experience. Because at the same time, there's nowhere else in the world where there's where you go out for breakfast like in Australia.
Yeah,
Like Australian
smashed over.
Australian cafes. It's a bit, maybe it's a bit parochial me saying this, but Australian cafes where you go in and, like, dining in cafes where you sit down and have breakfast are the best in the world for breakfast. It's amazing. It's really, really phenomenal what's happened in the last 20 years in Australia, and why that is, I don't know, but it's but yeah, Australians have just fallen in love with coffee, and we've become a bunch of coffee snobs.
Yeah, it's the bloke with the double plug is on, but one shot.
It's just coffees. It's amazing, and up here, like, this old couple will be on Peel Street, Central Hong Kong, and they're an Australian, and you hear the old lady go, "Hey, Dale, you think the coffee's any good here?" Like.
He's got his footy jumper on.
And he's, I'm not sure, honey, but we'll give it a go, And the amount of times you hear Australians when they've travelled around the world complaining about the quality of the coffee, we've become a bunch of coffee snobs. It's fascinating.
Coffee itself is a fascinating industry, because it's in the past 30 or 20, 30 years has grown globally.
It has.
Like,
it has,
maybe to the same extent that your staff has grown from 4 to 160. Coffee has grown on the same metric, if not more, globally.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I contemplate that, because I'm not sure
if it's more people drinking coffee or just people are drinking much better coffee. I don't know the number. I don't know the numbers around that. But when you were 10 years old, or when I was 10 years old, or it was instant coffee. Everyone drank.
What was that?
Nescafe 43. But back when we were 10 years old in Australia, you go to someone's house, and chances are they would have a jar of Nescafe 43 in the cupboard, and that's, if someone offered you coffee, that was the coffee.
Yeah.
Today, if someone offered you Nescafe 43 in Australia, you'd probably be embarrassed to offer that nowadays.
Because the biglietti, the caffettiera.
Yeah. So I don't know whether people are drinking more coffee or whether or not just the movement of what's being coined specialty coffee all around the world has just gone. It's really boomed fast.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah.
And then my question to you, as someone that has 10 places that make amazing coffee, is it because coffee is this affordable luxury for a moment where we stop and you see people look at a cup of coffee like my wife looks at a cup of coffee. Like they stare into it, and I'm not sure if it holds all the answers or if it's just the aroma. Have you ever?
I think so. I think one of the real beauties of coffee is it's a level playing field. We can all have it. We can all enjoy a good cup of coffee. We can all learn to appreciate the difference between the varieties in coffee, and sort of, because the cost is not much difference. Like, the difference between an average cup of coffee and a great cup of coffee when it comes to the single origin coffees and the quality and the varieties and the processing method, it's accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
And that's a really cool thing about coffee, unlike wine or fine dining restaurants where, very few people in the world would ever have had like a Penfolds Grange or, or been to sort of, El Bulli, the best restaurant in the world, or even know what that is. But coffee is just a real level playing field, which I think is a really cool thing about coffee.
Yes.
Yeah. And you go to a cafe and it's full of 20, 30, 50 people, and there might be a millionaire sitting there, and there might be someone who is sort of living month to month in there. We're all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that about coffee.
Yeah, I do too now that you explain that one. So let's talk about you, the entrepreneur.
Okay.
How did it all start? So maybe we start, obviously you must be very ambitious for someone to hone their craft, to come third in the world in 2010. And then, as we already discussed, I'm sure the Australian Barista Championships is a super competitive marketplace, because people, if I win this, I'm sure I'm going to do all right.
Yeah.
So how do you go from that guy that did the tour, fell in love with the way that this dude was in the white coat, roasting coffee beans, to competing, and then why Hong Kong? And then how did you start FINEPRINT?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously a long story, and I'll try and keep it as short as possible. I fell in love with coffee, which is being a barista, and I really fell in love with standing behind the coffee machine. The craft of making coffee, it's actually not easy. Like the role of being a barista, it requires care and attention and detail, and it is a real craft, and I really love that aspect about it. And I really enjoy the experience of serving people coffee, and where they come up and they're almost surprised how good the coffee is. I take great pride in just that satisfaction of serving that craftsmanship and creating that cup of coffee and serving it to people. And when you make coffee that's so good, they come back to your cafe every day because of the coffee you make. That's I think that's why a lot of Australian baristas, I suspect, become a barista, because that same thing, that enjoy the craft. But my conundrum at that time, many, many years ago, I was young, sort of 22-year-old, was you don't make a lot of money making as a barista in Australia. It's a sort of a low wage earning job. So I thought
through university, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of people put themselves through university as a barista, or that sort of thing. But I wanted it to be a career. And then at the time, another Australian, a guy by the name of Paul Bassett, he came first place in the World Barista Championship.
What year?
That would have been 2000, maybe 2003. I think he was the World Barista Champion. And that really inspired me.
Yeah.
And so that time I decided, I'm a very competitive person and a perfectionist. So I decided my goal is going to be to win the World Barista Championship. And so for the next 6 years, I threw myself relentlessly into the pursuit of the craft of coffee, learning everything you could possibly learn about coffee. Finding out websites to read to learn about coffee, watching videos, buying books, visiting coffee roasting. On my day off, I would some coffee roasting facilities where they would have me. I would go and just work there for free, just to learn from the coffee roaster.
Wow.
I would find out about, there's a coffee roaster in this suburb in Sydney. On my day off, I would drive there and go and visit, and just walk in the door and introduce myself. I'm Scott, I'm going to be the next World Barista Champion, mate. I was intense. I had an intense pursuit of the excellence of coffee, and then threw that into barista competitions. So I competed in the Australian, and I was just every barista competition I could find out that was on, I would enter and I would compete, and I just spent a lot of money on equipment and coffees and travel, and then My life really changed in 2006 when I was working at Toby's Estate Coffee in Woolloomooloo, and my friend rang me up and said, "Hey, the World Latte Art Championship is in a couple of months. I think Australia should send you because you're very good at latte art." And I was very humbled. And I said, "That's great. I think it's a great idea, but it's in Bern in Switzerland. I can't afford that." And Dean Morgan, the guy's name, he owns a company called Morgan's Handcrafted Coffee. He said to me, "That's okay. Well, if you're willing to go, we'll pay for you. We'll pay for your trip."
Nice.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Still to this day, a good friend. And so,
Pretty good compliment.
long story
short, mate.
Yeah, thank you.
Pretty good compliment.
Long story short, I jumped on a plane. Actually, I quit my job a few days later. I went to my employer at the time and I sat down with him and I told him about the opportunity and would you mind, I know it's really normally unprofessional, but would you mind letting me go so that I can go and practice for the World Latte Art Championship? And he was okay with that. And so we agreed to say, thankfully he was. So I spent the next.
Chase your dream, son.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah. I could looking back on it now. It's quite funny because it's not like it's like winning a coffee making competition. Good pursuit to win a coffee making competition. So.
Sorry, just pause for a second. What's the prize money?
No prize money. No, there's no prize money. Just prestige. A gold cup with World Latte Art Champion and kudos.
Nothing. Sorry. Sorry to interrupt. No prize money for being the world barista champion?
Oh, there might be nowadays. Yeah, it's grown a lot. Back then, it was. Yeah, it's sort of become more and more popular and more. It's become far more commercial nowadays. So, but this is 2006. So,
okay.
Yeah, no, but good.
Sorry to interrupt.
Anyway, long story short, I practiced a lot. Jumped on a plane, went to Bern, Switzerland, and I won. And came back to Australia and think a few days later I was on Sunrise National Television.
Really?
Yeah.
Go on.
So making coffee for Mel and Koshi on Sunrise and the front cover of the newspaper but that's a good sort of example of how much Australians love coffee. When you win like the World Latte Art Championship, or even if you win the Australian Barista Championship, you end up on national television. Yeah. I don't think that happens in any other country. It's so good, but it shows how much we love coffee. Yeah. And then on the back of that, I had a profile as a barista champion and ended up with a great job in Sydney's Northern Beaches at Bellaroma Coffee as like the brand ambassador and just traveling the world. I traveled to over 20 countries just working in the coffee industry, just as my job.
Does that mean competing, or what do you mean working in the coffee industry?
So traveling to coffee farms, sourcing raw green coffee from coffee producers in Peru and Indonesia and Colombia and Sumatra Indonesia, Sumatra, and traveling to trade shows, getting invited to places around the world to judge in barista competitions, to talk, So in the world of coffee, if you do well in like World Barista Championship, where I came third, and you have a reputation of not just being a barista, you really have a reputation of being a coffee professional, because people in the industry know the lengths that the best baristas in the world take it to. It's not just about making a cup of coffee; it's coffee sourcing and coffee evaluation and coffee roasting and brewing and all that sort of thing. So and then. On the back of that, I ended up in Hong Kong. I had a great job in Australia, full-time, like a great full-time job, company car, company credit card, international travel. But it was a bit like just boring. It became a bit boring for me, and I wanted a challenge. And
boring, traveling the world. That's unreal.
I don't know.
That's unreal.
Anyway, I was offered a job.
And that speaks in volume of your character, mate. Sorry.
Well, the job in itself is just too easy.
Okay.
So as in
ambition.
The CEO said to me, Scotty, because I had quite a profile then in the coffee industry in Australia particularly, but around the world. So the boss of the CEO of the company said to me, Scotty, you could sit at your desk all day long and do nothing, and we will still make money out of you. And that was a bit of a letdown, not a letdown, but like I don't want to hear that. I want you to tell me. I want a challenge. And so that sort of got me thinking, I don't want a job whereby I can just do what I want and not have any pressure or goals or challenges. So
you're not settling for settling.
Yeah.
To become the world third place in the world barista, you could settle at a level someone being a barista making coffee, but you've gone, you know what, mate, I'm not settling for this. I'm going to drive across town, meet another Yoda, and try to be a Jedi in making coffee, and I'll do that on my day off and do that with my spare cash on my way to becoming third place in the world. That's okay. We're getting there.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to throw in a brackets because this all makes sense for someone to build a phenomenal business like you have, except the part, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but it's almost cliche. A perfectionist usually doesn't make a good entrepreneur because they get caught up in the minutiae and they won't move on to the next thing that you need to grow.
Yes. Yeah, that's
the only thing that doesn't make sense to me as I'm writing down.
It's a really, really good question because I've had to change I got good friends who will level with me about being a perfectionist. And that one of my friends said to me, actually, Scott, he said, you actually might be on the spectrum, as Asperger's, because I'm that much of a perfectionist. And he said, look, I'll prove it to you. And he said, I want you to take the scales away. I want you to make a cup of coffee. And halfway through making the cup of coffee, he said, stop. And he weighed my dose of coffee grounds. And then he said, okay, make another one. And he weighed the second dose, and it was spot on, like dose after dose of, when you're dosing the coffee grounds in my hand, but it was spot on to the gram. And so that's how much of a perfectionist I am. So how does that kind of person who's a perfectionist build, like, have 160 staff and let go? And trust other people.
This is so good.
So as I said, I ended up in Hong Kong. I was an employee here for 2 years. While I was here for 2 years, I dreamt up started FINEPRINT on Peel Street. When we had one shop, I was that perfectionist. The first shop on Peel Street.
Which one?
I'm the barista. I'm such a perfectionist. For the first 9 months, I was the only person who made every coffee for the first 9 months. I wouldn't let anyone else make coffee. So how do you grow from being that person to 10 shops and having 100 staff who make coffee in all of the shops?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
So when we opened our second shop, I was still at the time working in both shops and behind the machine. And we opened our second shop. I had employed a guy named Rico to be the manager of the second shop. And I was there for the first 3 or 4 days, and he was getting really frustrated with me. He was getting, because I was there every day, all day, managing and telling people what to do and micromanaging everyone like a perfectionist. And he was getting really angry with me. And he pulled me into the kitchen, and he said, "Boss, can you please leave?" He said, "Can you please trust us? We've got it."
Nice. You pay me to manage, let me manage.
Yeah. And I looked at him and I thought to myself, this is going to be hard, Scott, but you've got to walk out. And I said, okay.
Hang on, you did walk out of that movement?
I said, okay.
You walked the block. Looked in, walked the block.
No, honestly. I said, okay. I said, Rico, I'm going to grab my stuff. I'm going to leave, and you won't hear from me for a couple of days. And I did it. I just...
and
it was...
How'd you go?
Well, as you would expect, him and the team, because what I learned at that time is a very important management lesson is I thought you needed to lead by example by being on the front line. But what I learned through that experience as a business owner is when you entrust other people with something that's your baby and you leave them to do it, they'll step up.
Yeah.
And they will do a better job because you've entrusted them with something that's really important to me, and they know that, so they will, and they rose to the challenge, and they did a better job than if I was there.
Yeah.
And Rico was the manager there for 2 or 3 years, and so that was the beginning of me learning the difference between being a micromanager and perfectionist, and realizing that I need to stop being a perfectionist and I need to learn what it means to be a leader, and the principles around sort of that particular lesson of, believing in your team, in trusting other people to, and other people can do as good a job as you, if not better job. And so, that was so to answer your question, I've had to self-evaluate that I am a perfectionist. And I need to let that part of me go. And I made a decision that I'll embrace a new challenge, which is learning how to be a leader and a business, and learning business, which I've spent the last 9 years of building this business. That's what I've spent doing. So instead of throwing my perfectionist nature into coffee, I've thrown my perfectionist nature into learning how to be a leader and how to run. What is business? Like when we started the business, I didn't even know what a chart of accounts was. I didn't know what accounting was. I started the business, and then 6 months later, I was in meetings with other business owners where they were talking about chart of accounts and accounting and balance sheets, and I had no idea what they were talking about. So I went home and bought an accounting course online and started learning. And so there's a book that's called The E-Myth. I forget the name of the author, but The E-Myth, the crux of the book is what we're talking about, where there's a lot of people around the world who start their own business on the back of being a technician.
Yep.
By being a technician, they could be a physio. They could be one of the best physios in the world, or a baker, or a plumber, or a builder, and they're brilliant. And their friends say, "Oh, you should start your own business because you're brilliant at this." And they mistakenly take up that advice, start their own business. But what they end up doing is buying themselves a 100-hour-a-week job because they're a perfectionist, not an entrepreneur. And I've had to learn, in order to be an entrepreneur, you need to just let go of being a perfectionist and learn what it means to be a leader and build a business. And so, that's been, and still to this, it's always going to be challenging because it's in my nature to want to know what's going on with everything.
Well, can associate. It's your baby, huh?
Yes, absolutely. It's my baby. FINEPRINT it's the culmination of my life's work.
And sometimes when you're learning to be a better businessman, I know it's been my experience, I have at times failed my way forward.
Yes.
How's that gone for you?
And
then, mate, just expose yourself. Give us one lesson.
I'm sure something will come to mind as far as failing myself forward. I think I've learned a lot of lessons in relationship through my working with my business partner, James.
Yeah.
So FINEPRINT, in the early days, FINEPRINT was owned 50-50, 50% me, 50% James when we started. And I'm a perfectionist, creative barista. He's in finance, so incredibly intellectual, great with spreadsheets. So you might say he's a CFO and I'm the CEO of FINEPRINT is possibly the best way to explain it. But he's in my relationship is a fascinating relationship because as I said, we're very close friends to this day. But owning a business together, obviously, that hasn't always been easy. So there's, I think there's times where I've been emotionally, I've allowed my emotions to take over in my relationship with him, whereby I've said things I shouldn't have, got inappropriately angry about something he did or wanted to do. And when I think we've all been there, done that, where we do that and then half an hour later, we just deeply regret it. Regret what we said, regret what we did. And, but despite that, we've both learned and grown together and moved on and moved through it. And I think it's made us closer for it.
Oh, no.
And learned from each other. I've learned, he says he's learned a lot from me. And I've learned an insurmountable amount from him. I think he's learned from me, strangely enough, about like leadership and emotional intelligence and about our business model and specifics there. I've learned a great deal from him just about communication. That things that what he's really, really taught me is never ever say anything or write anything or send a message that's emotional. Just always make it, practical and sort of reasonable. He's brilliant at that.
Yeah. That's a lesson for every entrepreneur. I know when to say I had my own business and then merged with Colin, joined Dynamics, and then Dave and Charlene, the four of us. And, sometimes you write those emails and when you make them emotive, instead of 2 paragraphs, end up being like 8.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, huh?
That's a lot,
It's a lot of work, you know, so fueled. You know, you link it, well, this is how I provide for my family, and there's all this backstory you're bringing into the,
Yeah.
and then along the way, you learn to be better at direct communication.
Emails and messages you type are just, it's a good way. Just don't send it. Just use it for self-counseling.
Catharsis.
Yeah. Because you write that email, don't send it, and then the following day read it, and then you might never end up sending it, but at least you've been able to self-vent, I guess, or sort of vent to yourself for.
And also have a big boxing bag hanging behind you. Just
Yeah. So that's a lesson that I've really learned from James. He's brilliant at that. It's just not getting emotional, not allowing emotions, which is hard because business. When I first started the FINEPRINT, I always thought business was all about just numbers and being practical, management, numbers, spreadsheet. You know, in my job in Australia, I really learned a lot about corporate structure and management and numbers and all that sort of stuff. So when I started my business, that's what I always thought it was about. But early on, I learned that it's actually emotional, and emotion is a really important part of business.
Yeah.
And we need to embrace that emotion and in a good way when it's appropriate. But allowing negative emotions to sort of take over. I have done that in the past, and that was a mistake, and I've learned from that mistake that you just when you're feeling like that, just don't do anything.
Sit there, hit the bag.
Wait 3 days.
Rush for your to maybe go for a run.
Don't drink anything. No beer or wine because that'll make it worse.
Yeah. Add fuel to the
go
fire.
for a run. That's actually where trail running comes in massively helpful. Like you said, punching bag for me, just go for a 20-kilometer run.
The best therapist right there, mate.
Absolutely. I once heard someone say, if you can't solve a problem on a run, then you can't solve the problem.
Yeah.
But it might probably not true, but it's still it's a great way to sort of just let yourself just burn steam.
Okay, but before we dive into that, because we're almost dangling the carrot a little bit for those trail runners who've tuned in at the moment. What? Whenever someone starts their business, from my example anyway, when I first started, I'd moved to Hong Kong, didn't know anyone, started a business. I was working 7 days a week. If on a Sunday, if I wasn't taking a workshop to learn more, and then it became teaching, running a workshop to share, or I was just doing my accounts, you know. On a Sunday, we'd put our kids to bed and I'd say to them, oh, babe, I'll just get on.
Joint Dynamics?
No, this was before Joint Dynamics. I had my own business, had 5 staff. It was called Innate Fitness, belonged to something from its very nature. Colin started Joint Dynamics and we merged 2014, I think it was. Anyway, so I was running my own business in Hong Kong, working 7 days a week. And I've met quite a few entrepreneurs and it's been a similar...
You must have had some great conversations.
Yeah. But what was that your experience? Like, just say, you know, the road to success.
I think the metaphor with the iceberg. Everyone sees what's on top of the iceberg, but they don't see what's under. And under the ice, under the water is 90% of the iceberg. Absolutely. For me, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Was that first few years. So we were living in Discovery Bay in a 1,600 square foot apartment on a full-time job, very comfortable.
This was the job that brought you to Hong Kong, not FINEPRINT.
Yes, I was. Sorry. I was living in Hong Kong, working as an employee for the first 2 years before we started FINEPRINT, and after that 2 years, but the owner of that business it was a 2-year contract, and we decided I wouldn't keep working with him. And so I had a choice between going back to Australia. For my old job was waiting for me back in Australia, or jump in the deep end and start my own business. And we made the decision to jump in the deep end, but that meant
you and your wife spoke about it.
Yeah.
Jemima, to this stage,
3 kids. Yeah.
Oh, you legend! Wow,
So
that's high five.
Jemima,
3 kids. Well done. And now you're going, okay, babe, let's do this.
So Jemima, myself, and 3 kids and a helper, the 6 of us moved from a 1,600 square foot apartment in Discovery Bay to a 700 square foot apartment in Mui Wo. So we moved from, like, for those listening, we moved from sort of posh expat area in Hong Kong to a very sort of primitive local village, the bush. So we moved into this tiny little apartment, and I wasn't paying myself anything for the first 6 months or year. Can't remember how long it was, but it was painful. And I, for the first 9 months living in Mui Wo, I was on the 3:40 a.m. ferry every day. So
Sunday including? We're talking
not Sunday, sorry.
Okay, good for you, mate.
6 days a week.
Yeah.
I was on the 3:40 a.m. ferry. So waking up at 3:40 a.m. ferry, and I wouldn't get home till 5 or 6 p.m. And into Pill Street, Soho, for the first FINEPRINT.
What a great spot that.
And we opened at 6. So there was a 3:40 a.m. ferry or a 6 a.m. ferry. So the point being, I had to get a 3:40 a.m. ferry to open it because we opened at 6 a.m. But it meant I got into the shop a little bit too early. I was that tired that I would get into the shop and I would lock the door and I would lie on the floor just to get another power nap for about 20 minutes. And I'd set the alarm and just lie on the concrete floor with put my head on my jumper and just have a sleep.
There's the iceberg right there. Nobody sees that, do they?
No, before I had to get up. And I don't know why I remember this, but I remember it was just me setting up before we opened at 6. And I remember I would run. I would sort of, there was a spot next door where we had the oven. So I had to run in there to I was doing the baking and setting up the coffee machine and the table and setting the cafe up to open. And I remember I would run in order to be open by 5:55, 6 a.m. And some days, I would get that tired, that I would, same thing, I would go into the bathroom and the cafe was empty. So FINEPRINT some days, no customers, place was empty, which is strange to hear nowadays because it's very busy. But and I would go and lie on the bathroom floor and have a 15-minute power nap. I could just lock the door, and so with in front of the toilet's there, I lie on the concrete floor and just try and get a 15-minute power nap.
Sorry to interrupt for a second. I bet there's, that was my story as well. I go from personal training out of swim school. I find a space between personal training and starting the swim school in the afternoon. I'd do exactly that. I'd have a 15, maybe 20-minute, and I used to go to a magic place, no matter where I was. I don't know about you, would you just go, oh, and I'd feel my body go, yeah. And then, when the alarm goes off, you go, oh, all right. But anyway, you just got to go. But I bet there'd be so many other people that have started their own business that have that exact power nap story, huh?
Yeah. So that, absolutely. And you just, you get that moment of sort of respite or just a bit of, and then, but it was like that for 3 years. I remember waking up, I remember couldn't sleep in the middle of the night because I was stressed. Yeah. How are we going to pay the bills? Yeah. It was.
How'd your wife go with all that? How'd your wife go with all that? That's the gist of a relationship, mate.
Well, honestly, mate, sadly enough, we're no longer together.
Okay.
So maybe this is the reason why. Not me just relentlessly throwing myself into building this business. Which as a man, you do it for the family first and foremost.
Yeah, that's the narrative. Okay, well, mate, now we're talking sacrifice as well.
But it took its toll on our relationship.
Talk about it for a bit.
Is that right? Yeah. Her and I, we're good friends. We still get along. We're still mum and dad. So.
How long ago?
Well, Jemima and I saw a therapist through all of this. Yeah. And the therapist, one of the things she told us was it doesn't matter what happens with you two, you're always mum and dad. And because of that, you are still a family, even if you two are not together anymore. Yeah. So we've held on to that. And when Jemima and the kids are back in Australia now, which I'm happy about because my kids are in a good school, which I want them to. I think my personal opinion is that Australian schooling is very good. I don't like the pressure of Hong Kong schooling. Yeah, I think it's unhealthy.
It's different.
Yeah, it's different. So unless you can afford like the richest, some of the really, really high-end international schools in Hong Kong. I'm sure they're incredible. But anyway, So
pause for a second, mate. If it's okay, you tell me to piss.
Go for it. Yeah.
Then the reason why I want to talk about it is because the entrepreneurial journey, and often I think people romanticize about being an entrepreneur. Oh, you've got your own business. That must be amazing. How's that? And then just underscore potentially, you alluded towards, potentially could have cost you your marriage. So I don't know if you've already used the iceberg analogy there for running your own business. And then I think we can also say success in anything means sacrifice and maybe not doing well in other parts of your life.
Yeah, I think absolutely. Yeah, I think.
Can you speak to that for a bit? If that's all right, you as much as you want, because I've just got this. Me and my wife had some amazing blues along the way. There was tension.
Yeah.
Like I had my sleepless nights, and my wife's Sicilian, mate. Which is one of the reasons why I love her. But, Australians were pretty mellow. Here you go, mate. Yeah, all right. Nice bit of rain today, eh? Whereas my wife is super direct and quite emotional because that's her heritage. That's her heritage. And along the way, when you're running a business, and like you said, usually business owners pay themselves last. That's been our story as well sometimes. And so that puts pressure I only had 2 kids. That puts pressure on the family, which then did put pressure on our relationship. Thankfully, we're still together.
Well done.
But yeah, honestly, thanks. No, that's not a joke. That's not a light thing to say. Can you speak to that?
Yeah.
Getting real, mate. I think running a business, ladies and gentlemen. You want to know how to run a business? Here it is.
I think one of my strengths and weaknesses is my personality type is I become blinkered by my pursuits at the expense of sometimes friendships and relationships. And I relatively confident that that's what happened with our marriage. We both agree, we both accept and agree because it's 50%, 50%. It's both of our fault, so on and so forth. But my fault is that I become blinkered by my pursuits, whether that's I want to do Hong Kong 4 trails, or a few weeks ago I ran Mount Fuji 100-mile ultra marathon. I become blinkered by my pursuits, which I still am, honestly, too. With ultra marathon running, I've got a coach and some plans for the next year, and with that, and the same with the business, and that's one of the barista competitions as well. Before, back when Jemima and I were together and living in Australia, exactly the same. I was always blinkered by my goals and pursuits, which is a fantastic trait at some level.
Yeah.
But if I end up in a relationship, a serious relationship again, then hopefully I will have learnt that lesson that it sounds like a duh, Scotty, but that when you're in a relationship, you need to give that person time. Yeah. And if you're spending all of your time giving something else your time, then that's going to hurt the relationship. And that's what I did.
Okay. And then I go, because I've had conversations with my wife. I love you, babe, by the way. Thank you for still being with me. Because where my mind went, using the analogy of a fighter, they have to be really selfish in order to be the best as a martial artist or something. Pick a martial artist, mate. They have to become selfish, because ultimately when they go in the ring, it's just them, and it's potentially sometimes you say life or death. So then I went to you building a business, and I think that could be a masculine trait. That's positive masculinity, I believe, but I shudder to get into that space. But I know for myself, being an entrepreneur, I want to provide for my family. I want my kids to be able to have good experiences, and I want to have good experiences with my family. That sometimes means working hard. And then I went to you because, again, my story parallels a little bit to yours. You decided to then become a trail runner along the way, which again seems to be putting yourself first again. Do you think?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
It is our relationship, because if I'm working full-time job and I come home at 6 or 7 p.m. and then I want to put on my running shoes and go for a 2 or 3 hour run, or on the weekends, Did
she run with you by any chance?
She did, yes.
Okay, there you go. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So did you get into it because of her? To be with her?
No. I was a runner. I got into trail running, and then it's probably the other way around, where she got into it so that we could spend time together doing.
That's love, huh?
That's love. Yeah.
I just want to be with you somehow, mate. If you're going to run out the door, then I'll run with you.
Yeah, and we used to run together a lot. So then she got injured running. You know, as you know from Joint Dynamics, running injuries are very.
Love you, trail runners.
Love you guys. But yeah, so she got a running injury. She got plantar fasciitis, and it's one of those injuries which is really hard to sort of figure out sometimes. And so that's like, so because of that she stopped running. But but yeah, we did do a lot of running together.
Was that good for your relationship?
Yeah. But one of the strengths of our relationship was that we both love the outdoors.
Yeah.
So we would do a lot of outdoor stuff with her and I together, and with the kids.
That was my next, because
loads of like, you know, sort of just climbing creeks and mountains and hiking and beaches with together. And so that's that was a really positive part of our relationship.
Yeah. And then the last thing, and then I'll move on. And again, you tell me to piss off anytime. What was the moment where you guys went, you know what, this is so hard, Scott, you are going to stay with this business, aren't you? And yes. And then you are going to keep being a trail runner. Yes. I don't know if there's enough space for us. Was there that moment, or you did that under counselling? Did somebody help you with that?
I'm so sorry. But so what happened to me of
some business?
I just came to the conclusion that for me in the relationship, there was just a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And so I just came to the decision that I'd had this pain for many, many, many years, which comes from a different space. It comes from I've come to believe that I think one of the most important things in a relationship, in a love relationship, marriage relationship, is learning to speak each other's love language.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't do that, you're going to spend years together in pain or end up breaking up. So I'd spent just many, many, many years in pain, and I just came to the conclusion that I don't want to do this for another 20 years. I don't want to be in this pain for another 20 years. And so that, from on the back of that, we started seeing a therapist, and then I made the decision for us to separate.
Thank you for sharing.
Which to this day, I think I made the right decision. Yeah. But I don't think you can never be 100% sure that that's the right decision.
I think I don't reflect and second guess myself as much as my life as a husband and a father.
Yeah.
I don't think I second guess and reflect myself in any part of my life nearly as much as those two.
Yeah. Yeah, you spend an inordinate, like I look at photos of my kids every day, because they're living in Sydney now. So it's, and obviously when I go and see them, I prioritize that. But it's you, and every time I look at photos of them, you reflect. Yeah.
Hey, I want to transition a little bit to trail running, and the way I wanted to lead into it was, do you need it? Like, so I have my practice guide. Anyone listening to this podcast is probably sick of me saying my Thursday, Saturday morning, I go get in the water, and it's a 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hours, and I feel like I commune with a God. No jokes.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I crave it sometimes.
Yeah,
I crave it, but what it does to me, it creates space and it builds resilience, and gratitude and appreciation and physical health and mental. Can you talk us how you manage running a business with 10 locations, 160 staff?
Yeah.
Along with being an ultra endurance athlete.
Yeah.
How do you manage those two?
Well, practically speaking, I don't think I believe that if you're fit and healthy, you're better at running a business. And I think if you've got a pursuit outside of your business, you're also better at running the business, I think. So that's kind of my excuse, my practical way of looking at it. But as far as why I do it or how I do it, I prioritize it. I love ultramarathon. I love trail running. I'm drawn to the mountains. I feel like I'm drawn to the trails. And the feeling of when you're fit enough to just keep running up and down and trails and rocks, and you can just keep going. That feeling of being strong in the mountains and just sort of free, it's addictive. I just love, I can just picture it now, just running in the mountains and I can just keep going.
Yeah.
And there's I don't know where that emotion comes from. Is it ego because I'm the one who's put in the work to get that fit and that makes me feel proud about doing it, or is it just the endorphin rush that comes from it? And then I love the feeling of finishing, like when you finish a really tough ultra marathon that's 100 kilometers or 100 miles or whatever it is, and the pain of achieving that when you're out there, it's damn, it's hard. It's so tough to finish like that.
Everything in your body saying stop.
I mentioned Mount Fuji 100 miles I did a few weeks ago, and that's the hardest ultramarathon, hardest physical, one of the hardest things I've ever done. It's definitely the hardest physical thing I've ever done. It was incredibly tough. But when you go through the finish line, the endorphin rush that stays with you for 1 or 2 weeks. It's just an incredible
feeling. Along with the physical pain. I mean,
which is, but also, the physical pain, but if you're on 100 miles, you can eat, you can just eat and eat and eat. And it's just a great feeling. Yeah.
All right, let's pause for a second in here and dive into the head of Scotty. You know, I'm sure everyone in their heads right now is going, does he Goggins it like David? Who's going to carry the boat as you're running around Mount Fuji 80 kilometers into the race? Where do you go? How do you get through? Because I was just saying, everything in your physical body is saying, you got to stop this.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Whereas this little top 2 inches is saying, no, I'm going to just keep going.
You run 160 kilometers, or this is 168 kilometers. That your brain trying to get you to stop starts at 20 kilometers. Like it starts early. And the thoughts of like how many, you run out that distance, how many times do you battle with yourself about like pulling out, like enough is enough? You must have those conversations with yourself 50 times. You really do.
Yeah.
And it's
tell us about it.
It's a psychological, I'm not sure battle is the right word, but like one side of you versus the other side of you sort of. It's a psychological game. It really is. You've got to sort of know yourself. And so what I did with that, with for this every particular race, what I do is I go through, I try and think through ways that's going to motivate me. What will motivate me to keep going? The Hong Kong 100 in January this year, my motivation for the first 50 kilometers was just relax and enjoy it. I just walk, take it super slow, get to the checkpoints and just eat, just enjoy it. Just don't be competitive. And then once I got to the 60 kilometer mark, I thought to myself, I might be able to get under 16 hours. And then that became a motivation. My motivation was to get under 16 hours, like run out and get a, so, in the 100 mile and the 100 miler, that was my first 100 miler. So my goal was just to finish. So when I was 20 kilometers in and my brain starts saying, hey, Scotty, this is just, your legs are already in pain. You've got, another 140 kilometers to go. You're in pain already. Can you keep going that long? Your brain's saying this to you. I thought to myself, well, I'm just going to get to the 100 kilometer mark. And then, and if I can get to the 100 kilometer mark, then what I will tell myself is you've run 100 kilometers already. If you quit now, then you've wasted that 100 kilometers.
Brilliant.
So, but first you've got to get to that 100 kilometer mark.
Yeah.
And the other thing that motivated me that particular race was my friends were running the 70 kilometer version. And the 70 kilometer version started the day after the 180, the day after the 100 miler started. But I ran through where they started. So I gave myself the competitive goal was to go through where they started before they started.
Yeah.
So that I could be ahead of them, and have the challenge of see how far I can go before they catch me. So that was the mental games I played in my head. And then once I passed the 100 kilometer mark, what got me to the end was I just kept telling myself that you've run this far. If you pull out, you've wasted. Like when I got to 120 kilometers, I told myself you've run 120 kilometers. If you pull out now, then you've wasted that 120 kilometers.
Yeah.
That was, and then one other thing was pride. You finish some of these races, and you get like a finisher's jersey, finisher's jacket, and I wanted the Mount Fuji 100 mile finisher's finisher's vest.
The carrot at the end of the road.
That's right, yeah. And when you finish and you get that vest, you wear it with pride. I did this, you know.
Yeah. I went through a lot of discomfort to get this, everyone.
That was incredibly tough. That was the toughest one I've ever done, because ultra marathons are a warts and all sport. That took me 37 hours. So it's the first time.
Mate, did you sleep at all?
No, it's the first time that
With any hallucinations?
Yeah. So I started 5 p.m. on the Friday, ran through Friday night, all day Saturday, all through the Saturday night, and into the Sunday morning at 6 a.m. Sunday morning, around about. And so at about 1 a.m. in the second night, I hadn't had any sleep for this is the second night of no sleep and running. I started to get hallucinations. Yeah. I was running up this trail, and it sounds really weird, but on my right hand side, about 50 meters up, there's Ronald McDonald was sitting on the side of the trail.
Rise with that, Scotty?
Ronald McDonald was just sitting, and then as I got closer, it wasn't Ronald McDonald, it was one of the other runners who had stripy socks on and was just sitting there, you know. And then and it was all, so I think, and it was all kind of, I felt like I was in one of those movies where someone's tripping and it's all misty, and I was a little bit dizzy, and then I saw one of the runners, and I thought it was a white ghost climbing his back. That's honestly what I saw. Unless you've had this experience, you don't really, it's hard to understand or imagine, but you absolutely have these trippy hallucinations. But what the white ghost climbing this runner's back was, he was just putting his white backpack on. There's one time where I thought I saw a lady just sitting there leaning against a tree, you know, and then some smoke disappeared. And so.
And are you, in those moments, are you cognizant enough to go, mate, this is just a hallucination? Yeah, forget about it. Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. But drop back into.
Yeah, you are cognizant enough. Yeah. You actually laugh at it yourself. When I got to Ronald McDonald and he's just another runner, you giggle to yourself. You're like, oh, that's funny, you know. And then in the final morning, I'm running down the mountain, about 3 a.m. 4 hours to go, and I thought to myself, oh, there's some soft leaves there. Why don't I just go and lie in them and have a nap? You know, it's so tempting just to sit down.
Jesus, in the desert, mate.
Put your head down.
Yeah.
But you also know that if you do that, you might not wake up for 7 hours. Like you might just, and then you've wasted the whole thing. So, so that was. Oh, but then what was one of the other really tough things about that particular race, as I said before, it's a warts and all sport. I actually got diarrhea. So for about.
You're taking the goose. What are you supporting yourself with?
That race, I decided to use. Maybe this is a mistake I made, but I'm not sure if it's a mistake or not. But in these ultra marathons, there's aid stations. You know, sort of once every 10, 20 kilometers, there's an aid station, and you can either choose to carry your own fuel, your own calories, or you can use what's at the aid station. Using what's at the aid station means you don't have to carry the weight. So I chose to use what's at the aid station. So I used their gels. And then I had some powder on my own, but I had a weak stomach the day before. The day before the race started, I felt a bit like wheezy in the stomach. So maybe I had some food poisoning from what was in Japan, what I ate in Japan, I'm not sure. But trying to run, that distance in the mountains and at night with diarrhea was just slowing me.
How can I imagine?
It was tough. Yeah. So, and sadly enough, lesson learned. It didn't carry. You know, you can get those tablets when you've got diarrhea to
Imodium, isn't that?
Yeah, Imodium. Yeah, it helps. I didn't have any of them. The first aid people didn't have any of them, so I just struggled through. I kind of wondered to myself, how did I keep going through that? Because it wasn't like.
Will you do that one again? Will you do it again?
Yeah, I've already told my coach I want to do it next year because I can do better. I did it in 37 hours. I believe I can do it a lot better than 37 hours. You know, I kind of feel like it's a waste if I don't do it again because I know the course now. I know the aid stations. I'm much better understanding of the race. So I feel like I can go back and do a better job. Yeah.
And then parallels from your athletic career to your corporate career. Any parallels that you found along the way?
Oh yeah, there's got to be parallels.
How about this? Can I ask you another way? Can you in the best way that you can, quantify the success of FinePrint. And then I'm going to ask you to quantify the success for trail running. But let's go FinePrint first. If you were to try to quantify the success.
I think it's, there's no, like, just, you do need to be a bit relentless. I think you need to have a bit of a relentless pursuit.
Yeah.
And a deep, almost like a conviction of, like, a lot of what FinePrint is and comes from is, and a lot of the sort of, not necessarily arguments, but sometimes where I need to be strong in meetings and insist that things are done a certain way, comes from a deep conviction is who and what FinePrint is. The model, the product, the experience. And I'm very adamant about that. And that comes from a deep conviction. So I think there's that. The FinePrint, I think, is successful. I hope it's successful because we've stayed true to, it's not just all about the money. It's not just all about business. It's about certain ideals and things and things that we want to, the community we want to build, the flavor we want people to experience, the atmosphere we want people to experience, the community, all that is really important. And I really wholeheartedly believe that if you don't keep that, then business will decline. And I think that's happened in other businesses where a new CEO has come along and he's been more commercial and corporate and lost the heart of the business, and eventually it goes downhill. So that's really important to me. So it's a relentless sort of pursuit to hold on to who we are and what we're about. So I think that's
so that's a collective, and then from an endurance athlete,
but I think it's the same actually. It's the same.
Relentless
It's
pursuit for you.
To
get over the line.
It's what do you call it? Finishing an ultra marathon is just, you need to be a little bit just stubbornly, relentlessly keep going.
Yeah. That perfectionist nature would help there as well, wouldn't it?
Have
to. As far as the prior preparation and crossing your eyes and crossing your eyes.
Crossing your T's and dotting your I's. But absolutely. The perfectionist nature massively helps in the preparation. Because the preparation, you need to be sort of calorie counting and what gels am I going to use and what powder am I going to use and what shoes am I going to run and what is the weight of all my gear. And that and the sort of, what am I going to eat when? You need to, if you plan that all out, it helps a lot. I've even had, when I've had people supporting me in races, sometimes some races will allow there to be someone at the aid station supporting you, and I'll prepare everything for them, and I'll write a list of things and give them little notes and so on and so forth. And one of the things I tell them is, listen to pre-race Scotty, don't listen to race Scotty. So when Scotty's been running 80 kilometers for like seeing Ronald McDonald in white ghost, just don't listen to him. The Scotty you knew 12 hours ago, listen to him.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, mate. What's your, I guess you'd say, your North Star for FinePrint? So you've gone from the kid making oats before school for the family to a cafe with 160 staff, 10 locations.
FinePrint is a commercial machine now. We've got 10 shops.
Where you going?
We're about to open. We've got another one on the way, another one after that. So we'll have, so we're about to open at the Hong Kong International Airport, which for me was a bit of a
success.
You
don't mind us saying?
Yeah, that was a bit of, thank you. That was
seriously.
That was a bit of a teary day for me when the hoarding went up at the airport, and I went out there. I jumped on the train and I went to have a look at the hoarding and take photos.
My mum and dad.
I love that. It was a bit of a, it's a bit of a emotional moment for me. So, growing from one little humble shop on Peel Street where I was the barista to sort of where we are today. So
sleeping on the floor before the place opened.
Yeah. But now we've got, operations manual, we've got a general manager, head of operations, head of HR, James, I'm kind of the CEO, James is the CFO. We've got, multiple management structure, sort of kind of, board meetings, once every few months now. So it's very turnkey now. The brand is strong. We've got a marketing manager, all that sort of stuff. So as you would expect, where we should be at this stage of the business. Really what I really hope for now is to get some money out of it.
Yeah.
Just to be brutally honest.
Amen.
Yeah, because I pay myself a decent salary nowadays, thankfully. So James and I, and the board accepts to pay us a reasonable amount now, but but to really, that's our salary, but to really cash in and to really sort of, for Jemima, the mother of my 3 kids, to get something, and for me to get something, that's kind of the goal now, is sort of, we've built this, machine. It's going to continue growing. We'll continue building it and pouring our hearts and soul into it, which I have and hope to continue doing. But yeah, I hope to sort of, it's been 9 years of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of hard work and incredible joys. But that's kind of, it'd be nice to for Jemima to get something for her sacrifices, and myself as well. And so yeah, that's sort of, hopefully we can find someone who's willing to sort of come in and invest for growth.
The duality.
Invest for further growth.
I got you, mate. Yeah, duality and dualism sort of it's a word that just jumped into my head. And when that happens, I don't question. I just go with this. And then when I analysed it, you were talking about it's very turnkey and it's process and there's structure.
Yeah.
And then you also went heart and soul. And then I also went, if I walk into FINEPRINT, I don't want structure and I don't want turnkey and I don't want rigidity, robot-like staff. I want, remember Cheers? Making your way in the world today takes everything. And then it goes to the crescendo of the song is, sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. So
absolutely.
Sometimes
they call that the Cheers effect.
Yeah.
You can achieve, they say, if you can achieve the Cheers effect, which comes from that TV show, then you're onto something. And we've been very fortunate at achieving, at FINEPRINT, I think we've achieved the Cheers effect.
So you've got the growth from the structure, but what will make me, the paying customer, come back is?
Systems.
Tell me about it.
Systems. One of my favorite catchphrases is, the system is the system is the system. Follow the system. And what I say to my staff is, if you follow the system and if something goes wrong, we'll blame the system.
Yeah.
If you don't follow the system and something goes wrong, we're going to blame you. So follow the system. And if you follow the system and something goes wrong, then we know there's something wrong with the system. That I think is one of the most important things we do, is and we systemize every conceivable detail. If you can systemize it, whether it's a measurement, a scales, some equipment you can buy, just documentation, in all of our kitchens, we've got the kitchen Bible, which the kitchen staff need to know. And, we've got all of the baristas have, temperatures and doses and measurement. They've got to be always within with what they're doing. It's all systemized, and
so you're controlling.
But I believe it's a bit like a house. I believe systems and operation is a framework for quality. And if you've got that structure in place, then you can build a beautiful house around it. But if you don't have that structure in place, you can't build a house around it. So that's metaphorically speaking, what I'm very as a strong conviction of mine is, in order for people to have the Cheers effect in FINEPRINT, the framework has got to be there. The systems that you can't see, but they've all got to be in place, and everyone must follow them. Yeah, I think that's really important.
Can you create a system to speak to my heart from me going into your? Well, you have, but I'd love to hear. I believe you have anyway. You speak to people that go to your place. They just go to your place. And you, to be honest, I think you've started a business in a super crowded marketplace. You might as well have started another brand of shoes. There's, you know what I mean? It's super crowded. You have etched out success in Hong Kong. And you, yes, you get success via systems, much appreciated. But you also get success when you speak to here. Can you systematize?
No, I think that
connecting to my heart.
No, I think that's different. I think that comes. I hope that comes from leadership.
You've done it.
I've become very passionate about leadership.
Okay,
and I think that the principles some people think they're a leader. But if you think you're a leader and you're walking along, if you turn around and there's no one behind you, then you're just taking a walk. Are you?
Nice, yeah.
And I think there's that like elements of people don't hear what you say, they hear what you do. And like the emotional intelligence side of leadership, I think it's something I'm really passionate about and I've tried to be good at. Things like I think you should encourage 9 times out of every 1 time you give constructive criticism, or just the power of encouragement. The lesson that I learned with Rico that I said, where you just believe in your teams, and all that kind of stuff. I think that if you do that and if you're good at that, then people will want to work for you, and then they will buy into who you are and what you're about. And on the back of that, we do a lot of training with our staff about, we want people to learn your name and your coffee, because we teach our staff that, good morning, Andrew, your usual latte today is so much nicer than good morning, sir.
I say to myself, this is my place. They know me. He said, you call me Andrew. Yeah, how good's this?
Yeah, so that's
real.
So we try to there's a lot that goes on when it comes to sort of talking about the music and the quality of the music, and we pay someone to curate our playlists, and we teach. We've got 2 people whose full-time job is training our staff into stuff that that stuff.
Oh, that's investing in your people.
Yeah.
Well,
that's where the culture comes from, I think. Yeah. And that's what I try and spend a decent amount of my time now on is culture. Now that we've got a general manager who's in place running the business, and his name's Ben. He's phenomenal. He's excellent. But that's sort of freed me up to sort of spend more time thinking, just paying attention to the product and the culture, and so which is a nice place to be.
Yeah. Do you know the last thing two things. One of them is actually 3. First one that just jumps, like, I don't understand this. I'm getting into the world of coffee via the love that I see my wife. But there's this type of coffee called Kopi Luwak. It's the most expensive coffee in the world. One day, someone must have went, hey, check out that animal. It's eating coffee beans. It just pooed some coffee beans out. Do you think we should try them?
It's a strange idea. It's a strange.
Do you serve Kopi Luwak at yours?
No, it's a highly unethical coffee.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. What, they cage these animals, feed them coffee beans and make them poop?
Yeah, the poor cats. There's places in Indonesia where there'll be like a backyard, like it might be 1,000 square feet, just full of small little cages. The cats can hardly move. And the only thing that they're fed is coffee beans.
That'd be good for your health.
For the cats,
yeah,
of course not. Yeah. And so there are some people who claim, who I think this is they're sort of certified true civet cat type thing, where they've got a farm and it's like a forest where the cats are allowed to roam free, and so some people claim that more ethical approach to civet coffee, which I'm sure it does exist. So it's. A lot of the civet cat coffee is just a very commercial, unethical business because it's abuse of these poor cats. There's possibly an ethical element of it where people do the right thing. Yeah. But at the same time, I've never tried the civet cat coffee where it's anywhere near as good as other coffees that are nowhere near the same price.
Got it.
So yeah.
And then, is there aspirations for FINEPRINT to go beyond the boundaries of Hong Kong?
Oh yeah,
awesome.
I hope so.
Well, you're at the international airport. You're just going to jump on a plane, mate.
Yeah, I hope so. We started looking at China a few times. I've been going to China a lot in the last sort of 6 months, year. I've started to try and learn Mandarin, and I've been to Shanghai and Shenzhen and Fushan and Guangzhou, and mainly because I'm just, why not? It's fun. It's something to learn, and but also I think it'd be good to. It's an incredibly different market, so just to understand that market, I think takes time. But yeah, so we would like to go to another country, but at the moment, I think the goal is, if we go from 10 shops to 20 shops in Hong Kong, that's enough. That's a decent goal for now. Yeah. And then maybe when we're at that size, we can start thinking about other countries. We've looked at Singapore, we've looked at China, and we'll keep having those conversations, and I hope it does happen one day.
There's 2 goals, everyone. So next year, Scotty's going to run the Mount Fuji, and he's going to go from 10 to 20 shops. Got you there, mate. Where do you get your inspiration from then? Is there a source that you just top up with every now and then, or just because you're driven and it's obvious that you love what you do, mate?
Nothing.
I do.
Yeah.
Look at this fire, his face again. He did it again. Look at his eyes like firecrackers. Where do you is there times when you need inspiration, and when you do need inspiration, where do you get it from? Or has there been a character? Is James it, mate? You tell me.
No. James is a very good friend, and I've learned a lot from him. I really get. This might explain how much I love flavor. Flavor is a very important part of life for me. If I go to any city in the world, I'll spend hours before we go there finding out where the good places are, and I'll travel for hours if I know somewhere that's going to be genuinely good eating experience. Yeah. I did it just this weekend in Phuket.
Did it deliver?
Unbelievable. Was it? Yeah. If you're in Phuket and you don't mind, and you're willing to sort of go off the beaten track to somewhere that's very remote. As More Mudong is this incredible Thai, very very local, super local.
Yes.
Like but it's the best Thai food I've ever had.
Yeah.
It's but very spicy. So anyway, but that's how much I love. Like it's this place that I went to is very very remote. So for point being, to inspiration, cooking flavor inspires me. I love cooking, and just flavor and trying new dishes and that. So, and then, I do. Yeah, like people like watching videos of like some of the best ultra marathon runners, like like mountaineers and like have you like that? What really inspires me is this. Like, have you Nims Dai? Have you heard of him? It's Nepalese guy. His name's Nims Dai. And he's a Nepalese guy, and he had the goal of climbing the world's 14.
I do know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's 14 peaks in the world above 8,000 meters.
Within 6 months, was it something like that? It was crazy.
Yeah. So the previous record was within 14 years or 7 years, or his goal was to do it within 7 months. So he wrote a book, and then there's a documentary about it. It's like. Both I've read the book and watched the documentary. Phenomenal. Yeah. Just reading this story about this guy who climbed the 14 peaks in the world above 8,000 meters, and so inspirational. Yeah, incredible. There's one story where he climbs Mount Everest, or one of the highest peaks in the world, and on his way down there was another climber who was in such a state that climber would have died, and Nimsdai carried him down. He's just in the middle of climbing the world's 14 peaks above 8,000 meters, and while he's climbing one of them, saves someone's life.
Tomorrow jumping on a plane to go to another place.
Yeah. He's So it's very very. So I get really inspired by that. There's another book that I read once, which is worth book called Sheer Will. And it's about mountaineering. I love mountaineering books for some reason. But Sheer Will is a story about a guy who climbed, I forget how many of the world's highest peaks. But again, it's just a story of this guy who he climbs mountains, and just it's the kind of book I think anyone can read, regardless of what you're into, and really really enjoy. So yeah, that sort of stuff really inspires me.
Outside of Hong Kong, where's the best coffee you've ever had, and tell us about it?
Oh,
outside of Hong Kong.
Outside of Hong Kong. I think most enjoyable coffee experience is probably in Naples. I love the coffee culture in Naples.
Southern Italian.
So good.
Yeah.
Just the history and the tradition, and just as a 50-year-old Italian barista in shirt and tie making your coffee, and with the old espresso machine and the old building, it's just beautiful. Either that, or that's probably the most enjoyable coffee experience. But I think the best coffee I've ever had was in Australia, in a cafe there's a famous coffee brand in Australia called Mecca, Mecca Coffee, Mecca Espresso. They used to have a coffee shop on King Street, and they once they were making coffee using a particular coffee device, and it was called a clover. It was this machine that brewed coffee a particular way, which was becoming famous around the world. And you haven't, no one, it stopped becoming commercially available because Starbucks bought it.
Really?
Yeah, it was called a clover. It was becoming really popular, and Starbucks bought the
competition.
bought the product, and it disappeared.
Wow.
Just cut out the competition.
Yeah,
But anyway, it was a machine called a clover, and it made a beautiful filter coffee with a particular single origin coffee called Ethiopian Beloya. Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah, that's probably yeah.
And then tell us one story of your favorite coffee farmer and in what country?
It's got to be a guy called Dionisio in Peru. So you fly to Lima, capital city of Peru, and from Lima you fly to another sort of jungle city called Tarapoto, north of Lima. And from Tarapoto, where Dionisio and he will pick me up and drive me in his four-wheel drive an hour or two to his hometown called Moyobamba, where his family lives. And from Moyobamba you drive up to his farm, which is another hour drive in the middle of the jungle, kind of almost on, I think it's not far from the Amazon.
Yeah.
And so I've been there 3 times. Dionisio is a very close friend. It's 1/3 of the blend of FINEPRINT's main blend is his coffee. So we've got a commercial relationship, but also a very personal relationship. Yeah, we're very, very good friends. It's an amazing experience when I go there. His sister comes to the farm and cooks for us, and cooks some of the best food I've ever eaten.
Yeah.
The food she cooks was, some people this might be a bit much, but the chicken that you're eating today was running around your feet yesterday.
Fair enough.
Well, they don't have it's a primitive farm. They don't have fridges. They don't have.
That's reality in those countries.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
There's actually strive for it.
normal. It's normal for them.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, you walk up into the jungle, or where the coffee farm is, and the other trees around there. They've got fruit trees that just naturally grow there. It's some of the best fruit I've ever eaten in my life. It's absolutely delicious.
He's first generation or second generation?
Second generation. So it's his dad's farm, his dad's side, and Dionisio. He's farming, and it's. It's an amazing experience. The last time I went there was a few years ago, and they gave me the honor. They gave me this incredible honor where, because I was there for a week, they had like a few cows, and they killed one of the cows to feed us for the week while I was there.
Yeah.
So which is incredibly humbling.
Yeah.
They've got 3 cows.
Yeah.
That's their milk.
Wow.
That's their livelihood, and they kill one so that I can have beef for the week to eat. And one of the amazing experiences with that cow that they killed is they did not waste one piece of that cow. Not the head, not the hooves, not the skin, not the bones, not the guts. They used and it was everyone helped.
Yeah.
It's everyone's responsibility to make sure that you do not waste one piece of that cow. Incredible.
And beautiful, huh?
Incredible to watch.
Honoring the life of an animal that we're going to sustain ourselves on. Let's not throw away anything. Let's honor the life of that animal if we are going to.
Yeah. Which is
beautiful.
Yeah, incredible, because as you know, in the Western world, there's a lot of, like in Australia, there's the meat that sells is the meat that's popular, and the meat that's not some of the cow which is not as popular would be wasted. But anyway, that was that was really not enjoyable to watch the cow being killed, but just I really appreciated that they respected the cow to use every piece of it, not waste it. Really, really fascinating. Yeah.
All right, mate. To finalise this conversation, if you reflect on, we covered quite a metaphorically, but like just say your trail running. I feel like we've done the Fuji. What was it called again? I feel like we've done the Mount Fuji in this conversation.
Yeah.
If you reflect on where we've been, like, man, we went through Australia. You
marriage.
Yeah, far out. You courageously shared a lot. I appreciate it. Where would you end this conversation at? What would you add? Who are you going to speak to? The entrepreneurs? Are you going to speak to the coffee lovers? What would you add to this conversation in reflection? I'm going to give you that time now. And then what would you add?
Interestingly enough, what I'm going to say comes from Howard Schwartz from Starbucks, which he just wrote a book called "Pour Your Heart Into It," and that really resonates with me, because for me and what I do, I just believe in whatever you're doing, do it. do it for something you love. Don't just do it for the money or for the achievement or for the recognition. Just do it for something you love. And that's, I've failed in many things in life, but I think one of the things that I have done well when it comes to my pursuits is fine print and ultra running or coffee and ultra running they're both things that I absolutely love. And that's just, why not?
One crack at this, apparently.
Well, yeah, but I think when I was 18, someone said, Scotty, when it comes to choosing a career, find something you love, become the best in the world at it, and then learn how to make money with it. And I took that advice.
You sure did. You become a third best in the world.
Yeah, I didn't become the best, but
Oh, a latte. You know what I mean? The latte. Jeez.
I became one of the best in the world, and I learned how to make money with it. But yeah, I think that's really, really important. Whatever you do, just be a good one, and do it and make sure it's something you absolutely love.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, mate.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, that was awesome, wasn't it? Hey guys, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another legend. Until then, see you, Scotty. Thanks for your time, mate.
Thank you.
See you guys in 2 weeks.